Let's go to James 5:10 through 11. Brothers and sisters, an example of patience in the face of suffering, take prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy. How many of you today are existing? And how many of you are enduring? Now, I'm sure some of you are saying, isn't that the same thing? Isn't it the same to exist and or endure? And yeah, there's some similarities between existence and endurance, but they aren't the same. To exist is basically a state of being. It's like these microphones exist. They are in a state of being. We can see them. We know they're there. We can go and we can touch them. But they are not enduring. I ask you the question again. How many of you are existing and how many of you are enduring? Unfortunately, in the church in general, there are Christians who are just merely existing. They show up to church, they come in and they sit down, and that is about it. They are in a state of being, but they are not in a state of endurance or enduring, persevering. And I think there's a problem with that. We've not been called or created by God to exist. We have been called by God to endure. And so what does it mean to endure? What does it mean to exist? Well, if the prophets merely existed, the word of God would not have been announced to the people of Israel. There wouldn't have been the announcement of God, the announcement of the coming of Jesus, the hope that is there, the promise that is there. There wouldn't be anything of substance, because they would just come in and sit on the rock among the masses and have sat there. You see, to exist means that you're not putting yourself out there for any possibility of pain or failure or success. You're just a microphone in a stand, and that's it. For any of the science buffs in here, we could say to exist is what we would call potential energy. Now, if you don't know what potential energy is, it's just basically that. In this microphone, there is potential energy. There is energy that is at rest, but it is not doing anything. It's existing. Potential energy is okay. It's good to have. We need potential energy. But what we really need is kinetic energy. The microphone now has kinetic energy. It has energy in here, and it's now utilizing its capabilities. So I can take this hot mic and go to Andy and say, "Hi, Andy, how are you?"
I'm all right.
And he said so enthusiastically, "I'm all right." That is kinetic energy. That, in kinetic energy, is endurance. It is the will to live. It is the will to overcome. Many years ago, back when I worked at the VA and I was the search and rescue coordinator there for the hospital, we would do training classes and so on and so forth. And there was a little story that we would talk to people about the will to live. And so the story kind of goes like this. There were these two fighter pilots, and they were flying over the cold part of Alaska. Nothing could be seen other than white and mountains, and maybe every here and there some pine trees. Something happened that caused the two fighter pilots to clip wings and have to eject from their planes. The planes ultimately crash. The two pilots eject from the planes and they float down to where their parachutes take them. The first pilot lands, hits the ground with a thump, oof, hangs his head, and says to himself, "It's over. I'm going to die. This is where I'm going to die." He reaches into his pack and he pulls out a pencil and some paper. And he begins to scribe a note to his loved ones. And it says, "To whomever finds my body, please tell my family I love them. ... The other pilot, he hits the ground, oof. And upon hitting the ground, he immediately unhooks from the seat. He climbs out of his chair and he begins to survey the surroundings. His intent is he's going to find something that he can make shelter out of. He's going to find something that he can build a fire. He's going to start making plans on how to capture prey to start eating. You see, the second pilot has the will to live. He is making plans. He is going to endure the hardship that he is facing right now, and he's not going to let him be stopped by that. The interesting thing is that not long after they crash, a support helicopter comes to pick them up. They find the first pilot, and the men come and they approach him, and they find him kicked back and asleep. And he had his service revolver out, his service weapon. He wouldn't have been carrying a revolver. And he had it laying on his chest with his little note that he had inscribed his message. The rescue team comes and says, hey, wake up, we're here. And he said, "Oh, you got here just in the nick of time." They were puzzled. Why? Why are we here just in the nick of time? He said, "Well, I had planned on, after taking a nap, that I was going to put my service weapon to my forehead and pull the trigger because I just couldn't see myself surviving or handling this situation. You see, the first pilot had resigned himself to just merely existing. Later, the support team, the rescue team go and they find the second pilot. And they run up to him, and actually the second pilot is angry with him. He's like, "What are you doing here already? Good grief!" And the rescue team is like, "What are you talking about? Why are we here so soon? We figured you'd want to go home. I mean, your co-pilot, or your friend over here, he was ready to off himself. And now you're mad that we've come so soon." The guy's like, "Yeah." He said, "I really wanted to see how long I could survive out here. I built this shelter and I got a fire going, and I wanted to see if my snare worked to catch the bunny rabbits." Sorry, kids. It's not bugs, though. You see, both pilots were trained in survival skills. They both knew the same knowledge about how to survive. But you see, we can't teach the will to live. The second pilot was willing to endure whatever hardships came his way. As a matter of fact, he was kind of looking forward to it. And that first pilot had already given up before he had probably hit the ground that I'm done. How many of you are existing? And how many of you are enduring? Got so many microphones and stuff on me, I just don't know what to do. Endurance is a virtue. And that virtue remains, or it involves that we remain steadfast in our faith and in our obedience to God, especially during difficulties and trials. And it's not merely just about enduring, but rather enduring well, with a focus on God's promises and His character. In my younger years, there has been a drastic change in myself. I can remember being in football in high school, and we're going through two-a-days, and we would get to a certain drill, and it was typically grass drills. Does everybody know what grass drills are? Up-downs. Grass drills or up-downs is where you stand like this and you start chopping your feet as fast as you can. I hope I don't bring him back PTSD for you, Brian. And so you're chopping your feet as fast as you can, and then the coach will blow the whistle, and you hit the ground and bounce back up as fast as you can. And we are doing hundreds of these in one session. And they are hard. It's hot and sweaty. You're getting grass all over you, dirt all over you, and all you can think is, okay, God, take the whistle away from the coach, or may he swallow that stinking whistle. And it's hard, it's painful, and you don't want to do it. And then there were some of us that, "Oh, Charlie horse, I can't do it. I got to sit off to the side, Charlie horse," and we'd give up. And we would go and we'd sit on the side and we'd watch the other suckers happen to do it. Right? And I was one of those. And there were other things in life later that when it got hard, I wanted to quit. And I did. And something radically changed, where I became so disturbed with myself for quitting that I said to myself, I would never do it again. This is why I use the videos of Rocky Balboa. Steve, could we play the second one, please?